Hi friends, Astrologer Joe here with another update video. As you can see here, this one is very interesting. I've called this, is the deep state provoking the bear into war? I've recently come across a video talking about this, and I've been paying attention to this. As you know, we're going into this weird timeline beginning in July all the way through April of 2025, where the energy starts getting really weird and wonky. And I will continue to cover all this, but this one is something we need to keep an eye on, because this month we also have Mars, which is going to switch signs and go into Taurus, and it will begin to square Pluto. So usually this is indicates war or conflict of some kind. So it appears that, to me at least, the deep state is trying to provoke the bear. Now, what do I mean by the bear? So here's the video that if you want to watch it, I left you a link down below. This is Dabu7. He does a pretty good job of just giving you a little overview of what's going on. And so he's talking about this as well, but it's on a lot of other channels as well. But remember when Mr. Putin said this during the Tucker Carlson interview? Okay, they are provoking us. And who is they? Again, we're talking about the deep state around the world, this corrupt system that has been controlling most of the countries of this planet. And so it appears that these organizations are trying to provoke Russia into some sort of major, and I mean major, conflict. And so this seems to be the case here. And I think I have some slides here. Here's a report from the Gateway Pundit. Okay, you could read it right there and see what it says. That's just one. That's on June the 3rd. Then we have RT News also talking about troops being prepared for conflict. As you can see here, that's on June the 4th. And so there's rumblings. Here's another RT, about what they call Kremlin calls U.S. an enemy for the first time. As you can see here, there's a lot of provoking going on. Okay, and even Zero Hedge has a report here about the U.S. troops going into Europe. And, I hate to even say that word, WAR. And so this is what I'm seeing here. And I'm going to show you the astrology on all this and what it all means. Okay, so why now? Of course, the astrology is indicating it, but why now? Well, one of the reasons, and the main reasons, is because of this, the BRICS nations. If you're not familiar with it, this represents Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And the reason this is so important is because these group of nations, and there's like over 160, probably more by now, that have gotten together to bypass the dollar as the world reserve currency. And they've backed their currency with gold. Do you see the conflict here? If you're a deep state corrupt system that has infiltrated every bank around the world, and you're controlling all the monetary systems, you're controlling all the politicians, and you don't have a real currency because it's not backed by gold, and all of a sudden this currency, or this group of individuals, this group of countries comes together and says, you know what, screw your currency, we're going to create our own and we're going to back it by gold. Now these folks have a real currency. And I've talked about this before in other videos, but this is the main threat. This is why Russia is such a threat. And so the old system is dying. The old financial system is on its way out, and we know this. If you've been following me a while, or someone else that's been talking about the financial system, that it's in trouble, that you know that they're going to try and create chaos in order to hide or mask the problem that the old financial system is going out the window. So this is the major issue that I'm seeing here. Okay, it makes a lot of sense to me. But also, well, this year in the United States, we have the election. And again, I've said it, we might not have it because of other circumstances. And I'm not going to say it's going to be war, but there could be conflict. There could be electrical issues, as I've talked about, power outages, and so on. All of this stuff is a possibility as we get closer to November. So let's see what happens. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see what happens. But we know that there's some sort of military operation going on behind the scenes with all of this nonsense. So this year we have this going on, and it doesn't surprise me that some sort of conflict that's being artificially created to provoke another country into chaos. So we have to keep an eye on this, okay? So as I talked about in the new moon on April the 8th, we had a very powerful solar eclipse in Aries, the sign of war, the sign of conflict. And I did say that watch the third month coming in after an eclipse, because those are the most significant times. So what are we looking at? We're looking at May, June, July. These are the most pivotal times after a new moon or an eclipse, a solar eclipse, that are most pivotal. And then again at 6 months, which again brings us into the fall. So this was the trigger here for what is taking place in the world today. And I will go over some charts with that. So first, let's go over Russia's chart. As you can see here, Russia, I have the chart for September 20th, 862. And we see that that eclipse occurred right on the Pluto of Russia, which means that in the coming year, there's going to be a lot of changes to Russia and what's going on in the country, because it's in the fourth house of the home, foundation, could be governments and so on. So here we're beginning to see the rumbling of this solar eclipse acting up on Pluto's very powerful. It's a tough conjunction here. It's right on the money. Okay, and it was also squaring Uranus loosely at 5 degrees, so 19 to 14, about 5 degrees. Once again, surprises. So Russia is in for quite a few surprises over the course of the next 3 to 6 months, up to a year. So it doesn't surprise me one bit, of what's going on here based on the astrology and what I've been tuning into. So we see that Russia's chart is one that is a little volatile in the coming months. I also did the chart for this criminal organization, okay, right here. And we could see that that eclipse was right on their north node. And I say it's a criminal organization because it's being led by the nose, by the elite and the powers that shouldn't be behind the scenes. They basically tell these people what to do and they follow orders, like a politician. And so here we see that eclipse from the 8th triggering the north node in Aries, which is about motivation, drive, conflict. And the Aries here is in Mars is in Aries, Venus is in Aries, their natal chart. But we see one of the biggest ones here is Pluto was going in direct motion and it just passed over Jupiter. So I'm seeing here that, and the 8th house is death and rebirth. So that this organization is somehow going to be roped into whatever's going on here with this artificially created conflict. And so we're going to see this evolving and unfolding, of course. Now, over the United States, of course, the eclipse occurred, as I've pointed out before, over Texas. Okay, so Texas, again, with the issues with the illegals and what's going on there. And I just put out a video yesterday about Texas poised to create its own stock exchange with less red tape. So this is interesting. We have to keep an eye on this because it's very strange, especially with the company that's involved in this, BlackRock, not exactly the most beneficial company out there. And so even Wall Street Journal reported on it. And so this is something we need to watch as well. Texas is an area that a state that we're going to need to watch the rest of the year because there are going to be more announcements and more information on whatever is coming out. Again, Texas is either going to lead the way or is going to secede or do something that is going to surprise the rest of the nation. And it's already starting. Now, the United States' chart. Let's go to the new moon. I'm doing this video on the new moon today in Gemini. As I said, and I pointed out in the new moon outlook video, look for issues with other people or partnerships. And what are we seeing? We're seeing the skirmish or this provoking of Russia. And so we're seeing that right there. We're seeing the square to Saturn right there, 1618 in the third house of communication. So over the next 2 weeks, we are going to continue to see stuff escalate with information and noise and speculation and possibly even some sort of disruption or conflict move or aggressive move, especially when Mars goes into Taurus and it squares Pluto. And I have those charts here as well. So there is a lot going on here, even in the United States' chart. When we look at the Russia chart, we see the same thing. The new moon at 16 degrees is activating their Jupiter right there. It's activating their Saturn right there. It's activating their Venus right there in Scorpio. It's an inconjunct which means a little bit of confusion or irritation. But their Mars is also being activated as well. Okay, and so this is going to go into the 5th house, and we could see some issues here because Mercury has been opposing Mars. So some issues or talks have been going on behind the scenes, probably not in favor of Russia. So we're going to continue to see that nonsense unfold. And of course, we'll have 3 of these planets moving out of Gemini, going into the 8th house and triggering the Moon and Uranus. And I will cover that as well. So you could see that there's a lot of activity going on here. In this organization here, it's at the top of their chart, at the high point, politics, political nonsense. So we'll continue to see that organization and group being active. Of course, look at the Mars right on the North Node, along with Chiron. And so this could provoke challenges and conflict as well. And this organization is being roped into it, sort of leading the way. So we'll see what happens. Now, Mars enters Taurus, as I said, on the 9th. Here it is, right here. And right away it starts to square Pluto at 1 degree. And it will continue to for at least the next week or so. So this is in effect after the 9th. So how does it affect these countries? It'll square exactly on the 11th, right there to here. So we're looking at high tension, irritation on a personal level, but also on a larger global level. And lots of talks, lots of posturing, lots of maneuvers, and possibly even some conflict. So in the United States' chart, we see the Mars has moved into the 5th house. So something new is developing, and it's squaring Pluto. So power struggles, something to do with, conflict, anything to do with money situations, That's why Texas, I think, is starting their own exchange, and there's going to be other states that probably follow. So we'll see how that unfolds. We also have Jupiter moving forward. It'll probably hit Uranus in July. And then, there's definitely more irritation or frustration coming. And I said this in July that we have some rough alignments coming up as well, and I'll cover that. But lots of communication, lots of unsettled energy during this time. In the Russian chart, we see the same thing, 5th house to the 2nd house, power struggles. But we also see here in the Russian chart, we have in conjunct to the Sun and Saturn, exactly 1 degree, and Pluto is making an alignment there. So this is serious for Russia. They are taking this very serious, okay? And, the last thing they want to do is go into another war. But they are seeing that this is, like Putin said, they're being provoked. They're being poked. The bear is being poked. This is what I'm saying. This is why I used that first slide. Are we provoking the bear? And I don't mean necessarily we, the United States. I'm talking about the deep state around the world that is trying to cause conflict. And that's what I'm seeing here. Same with this criminal organization. We're seeing the square this time in the 8th house of destruction, death, and rebirth into the 5th house. So they're on board for whatever their leaders and are telling them what to do. So they're all excited about it. They're going to intervene and be a part of the negotiation, the quote-unquote negotiations. And so we may see this organization send troops to these areas. So if you guys find some stories, please share them with us. Now, on the 17th, excuse me, through the 21st, Mercury and Venus enters Cancer. Now this is the nation, our nation is a Cancer nation. So we see Mercury and Venus, but then we also see the Sun, as I pointed out in the New Moon Outlook video, going into Cancer. Why is this important? Because we are a Cancer nation. So we're seeing much more hostility or passion or desire for change or movement. This could occur militarily, or it could occur in the country. We know Mr. T has got some issues there going on. We're starting to see a little bit more rumbling. And as I said, this summer is going to be very unstable. And so I think we might see the beginnings of this around this time frame, okay? Right around this, when the sun goes into Cancer, because everyone's becoming more passionate. But really, the trigger point is the day after when the full moon gets activated. And as you can see here, this creates a T-square in the mix here between the sun and the moon, and of course to Neptune. So there's a lot of confusion in the mix, a lot of emotion and feelings in the mix here with this. So this could turn into something not so pretty or pleasant in the United States or in politics. And here we see it in the United States. We see the Jupiter getting closer towards Uranus, which means instability, unstable. We're seeing the Venus and the Moon and the Sun conjuncting, so posturing, emotion, passion, all of this stuff gets raised up. But look for surprises around this time frame. This could be politics, this could be announcements, this could be arrests, it could be anything. But because we're talking about a conflict here, there could be some maneuvers that are made that surprise everyone, like battleships, surrounding, Russia or going somewhere. And they're already moving troops, by the way. So we need to keep an eye on this, In Russia's chart, very strong. And they're taking it so serious. Mars begins to square Mars, as you can see here. So Russia is in for a little bit of a challenge this entire month going into July. But we're also seeing the planets in Cancer also triggering their moon and triggering their Uranus over the course of this time. We're seeing the full moon activated right there, and it's squaring their Saturn and their Sun. So we see a T-square going on right here. So there's a lot of pressure being put. Actually, it's a giant cross. But this could be, Russia is really going to be in a position where it's going to be under a lot of pressure to hold itself back, to not cause conflict, to not engage. And that's what I'm seeing here. But the pressure is going to be really strong on them. They're really trying hard. They don't want war, and they've said it. They don't want any conflict. So we may see some of this as this Mars continues to be the trigger point as it's going up, triggering the Mars here. They may impulsively do something that gets the world's attention. Same with this criminal organization. We see Mars, Venus squaring their Mars and Venus. So here's their Mars and Venus, and here is Venus and Mercury, and then later on the Sun. So it'll be squaring here. So they're going to be up for whatever. Uranus begins to square Saturn, and this is again some sort of change that I'm seeing here that gets provoked or activated, and this organization is absolutely affiliated with it. Okay, remember, this is the extension of the deep state right here. And so we may see more of that going into the end of the month, into July. So keep an eye on this, okay? Remember, friends, we are all spiritual beings having human experiences, and we're going through such a transformational time right now. It's a vibrational change. It's an awakening. It's a realization of what the hell is going on in this world right now, and how things have been run. So always remember this. We are spiritual beings having human experiences. If you want to know more about astrology or how things work, I put together this free masterclass for you folks. And so check it out. All I ask is your name and email to stay in touch, just in case anything gets changed here on these platforms. And of course, in my private community, I go much deeper into what's going on. Every week we have a Zoom call. So lots of information, lots of discovery. And I could talk a lot more freely there and answer so many more questions there. So anyway, but check out this free class that I'm offering you guys. And I look forward to talking to you soon. All right, have a great week. Enjoy the new moon, and I will talk to you later. Bye for now.